Hi, welcome to Eade It. I'm James Eade, and this is a show that's brought to you to answer questions. And the questions that I have are about how are you recovering from the various addictions that you've experienced in your life, and what are you doing about it to make yourself feel better? So if you go to airu.tv, that's Addicts in Recovery United, and you'll see past episodes of this show and others, and it'll be one of those things where you can pick out what you like. There's a show called Change Your Mind. There's a show called Calm Down with James Eade. There's a lot of things that you can pick and choose, because the point is to find what works for you. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. But if you find what works for you, keep it doing it. And so the answers that we're going to struggle with today are based on questions from the viewing audience, sorry. And you can do this, participate by writing to info@airu.tv. And you send your questions in, and Rick Rosner, who I'm going to introduce now. Hi, Rick.
Hello.
Good morning. And Rick is a little under the weather with COVID. I guess COVID is going around the country again. I apologize for any coughing that the show might involve.
So I looked around for a question about COVID since I freaking have it, and I got one from Lori Ann Carter, no city given, but Michigan, who asks, "Will we ever be done with COVID?" Which is an astute question, because I guess that a majority of Americans think we have been done with COVID for quite a while. That either it's gone away or it's just so freaking mild that you la-di-da, you don't have to worry about it. I believe, and I haven't looked it up, I should have. I think it's still killing about 1,000 Americans a week, about
Whoa.
50,000. Now, I'll double check, about 50,000 a year, which is double what flu generally kills.
My goodness.
But
I confess that my awareness was not up to snuff there. I did not realize that. That's staggering.
I'm pissed because we're 5.5 years into it, and I take a lot of precautions because I look at the numbers and I see that we're not done with it, but I still got it, and I feel like if COVID had been handled better earlier, that maybe we wouldn't be in the position of COVID, being years from going away, if ever.
Right. And as you say, was it like 2019 or 2020?
2020. It hit America around March of it was brewing around. It took out a cruise ship. There was a cruise ship that was forced to dock, way off the coast, so that this new strain of whatever, and that was, I think, February, and then March it moved on in.
Right. And I assume that you've been getting your COVID vaccinations.
I've been vaxxed and boosted 10 times. And because of that, I think, I'm 65, and 80% of the people killed in America by COVID are 65 and over. So I thought I'd do pretty well. And I've done pretty well. I mean, I was never, I had chills for maybe half an hour total. I saw stars for a few minutes, which indicates not enough oxygen, but all that stuff was over with, really fast. But I've been coughing and
bronchial stuff.
Yeah, it's been a week, and I'm on Paxlovid, which is supposed, and even with all that, and I'm on metformin, both of which are supposed to interfere with the reproductive cycle of the virus in your body. And I thought I'd have a much easier time, but freaking no. I test every day. I've been positive. I haven't tested yet today. I'm waiting for the little stripe to get more faintly pink. So it's not just a cold. It's anyway.
Yeah, and my mother-in-law got COVID. She's in a senior assisted living situation.
How's she doing?
She was on Paxlovid, but she had some side effects.
All right,
And
Paxlovid. There's a thing I'm finding out that it gives you Paxlovid mouth. It gives you a horrible taste in your mouth.
uh-huh.
And either it or COVID itself gives you an itchy asshole, which could Paxlovid gives you diarrhea.
And it's what her
Maybe
consequence was. Yeah.
maybe COVID does too, and makes it very hard to keep your ass clean. And it's stingy diarrhea. So, like, who would think that COVID gives you like monkey butt?
Right. Yeah, and it's a side effect, but it's a miserable side effect, and you don't want to go through it if you can
No,
avoid it.
plus I worry about my brain still works pretty well, and I worry, like, how many years did this take off my brain? Because they've done studies that if you get COVID that's bad enough to hospitalize you, that ages your brain the equivalent of 20 years.
No kidding.
It's bad. Like Trump hospitalized, brain was not great in the first place.
And he's 78?
79.
79.
Yeah. And so, like, I looked at some studies, and this may have aged my brain by, a year or two, which I don't want that. I don't want to, the confusion of old age to have crept like another year closer just because I got this frickin' stuff.
Yeah. I take some sort of brain supplement now, in the probably false hope that that will counteract all the damage that I've done to my brain over the years.
I take some stuff, but there's very little that's been proven to, the only thing that's been proven to get your brain going is coffee. Coffee. But that's temporary.
Right. And I got an espresso machine now, so I don't know if that is any different from coffee, but it's the caffeine that activates you. And so I always had 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and now I have 2 cups of coffee with 1 shot of espresso. So it's definitely makes my head clearer. And I don't know what the long-term effects are, but I do know that the short-term effects are good.
I think the long-term effects are generally good too. But if I have more than 3 cups of coffee, then my heart gets the gallops. So
yeah, that's too much for me too. Right. I've learned that by trial and error. Yeah.
And at our age, it sucks that we have to frickin' manage our bodies.
Yeah. Well, and it's our responsibility to keep ourselves as physically and spiritually and mentally fit as we can. But there's a lot of forces that are active that we have little control over. And the COVID is one of those examples of things that, like, you try to take care of yourself, you mask up or whatever you're doing, taking the vaccines, getting boosted, all of those types of things, you should be okay, yet you still got it. Now that's frustrating, because you're trying to take care of yourself. I know you work out a lot. It's part of, like, you don't have an addiction problem, but you have a OCD.
Where I'm even though I probably shouldn't be working out at all, with like COVID fills your body with these spike proteins.
Right.
And if you do intense exercise, you can end up like driving them and wedging them in places where they cause long-term inflammation. Now, fortunately, I know a guy who's a runner who just thought he'd run through it, and that was bad. Now, I don't work out that hard, so I don't feel like I've caused myself any damage. But yeah, and it's not just me. My kid also caught it. I don't know if she caught it at the same. We went to a wedding, and that could have been.
It's a social gathering.
It could have been on the flight back from the wedding. I sat next to a kid who was coughing for 4 hours. I don't know. And I don't know if I gave it to her because she caught it a few days after I caught it. I don't know. I feel bad. I mean, I don't know. And, I can deal with, losing a year off of my brain, but I mean, she's half my
Yeah.
age. I don't want her to, you know, have lose years off of her mental life.
I got COVID serving on jury duty next to a person who had it. So, it's like one of those things. It's very difficult to control your life in such a way that you're not exposed. So are we ever going to get rid of it? My feeling is that, as you mentioned, it's a spiked protein, and there's messenger RNA vaccines that are supposed to be targeting those spikes. And I think that this is the future of medicine in terms of COVID, cancer, all of these types of things. I believe that these novel approaches, now, there may not be some novel now, but we've got enough experience to know that it's not, we're not guinea pigs now. They know what they're doing with some of these vaccines. Of course, we have a czar who's anti-vaccine.
Well, that guy he's getting rid of the statistics, so you can't. It's harder to tell what COVID is doing in the country. He's he's making it harder to get vaccinated. He's
right.
removed, like, because now if you're under 65, if you don't have comorbidities, you may have to pay for your vaccine, and that could be like $150. And most people are not going to pay that.
Even just the inconvenience of going in to get vaccinated is determined.
The tests, there used to be free tests at our library. Those are disappearing. And he's making it harder to keep track of disease. And as people say, he's not a doctor. He's got a bunch of stupid beliefs. He has a few decent beliefs. He thinks, we should eat cleaner and less processed, but that doesn't make up for all the death he's going to cause by screwing up, the structure of our preventive medicine system.
How did he get appointed?
Because he endorsed Trump.
So, we have someone who doesn't know medicine appointing someone who doesn't know medicine, giving us medical advice.
Yeah, but let's talk about the go away thing, because I've looked at, before the CDC pulled down their statistics, and you used to be able to look at the disease curves for 5.5 years. In the last couple of months, under RFK, they pulled that stuff down. But before then, you could see the disease curves, and it looks like a two-humped camel every year. There's an end of summer spike into early fall, starting about now every year. And then there's a big one that it calms down into Halloween. And then after Halloween, going into Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, then you get your big spike of the year. So two humps a year. And the humps have been fortunately getting less high year by year. It was since 2022, I think. But the valleys, the peaks have been dropping. The valleys all stay they're not getting any lower, which speaks to a reservoir of people who, are going to keep steadily getting it. So it's never going to, or at least not in the, next few years, not going to go away.
So what I thought might be a logical outcome for this, and again, this is just talking because I'm talking, you get a flu shot every year. At least I do. Yeah. And so I get a COVID shot every year.
So, and they're talking combined.
Pardon?
They're talking combined, that they could give you a shot that's flu and COVID.
Right.
And it would be, each one would be pegged to the strain. I believe, based on the symptoms, I have the strain of COVID NB.1.8.1, or I guess they're calling it Nimbus.
Okay. But that's the point that you're making, is that these are variants, these are strains.
Yeah.
So if you've got a vaccine for one strain and there's another strain that's out there.
The good thing is that at least I got vaccinated against this one strain by getting it. So it should be tougher for me to get it again.
Right. But they're
I
going to have
guess.
to come out every time there's a new variant. They're going to have to come out with a new vaccine.
Yeah, but RFK Jr. fired the people who
Right.
track the variants and decide um,
Yeah.
what ingredients should be both in the flu vax and in the COVID vax.
And you're talking about the number of deaths that you were talking about earlier, 50,000 a year. This is going to increase because of these actions. This is not something that we can say, well, that's leveled off. If 50,000 is an awful number, but it's going to increase because we have people firing the people who can do the
It's
work
going to
that will
empower
save
the
them.
idiots, and it's going to disempower the lunatics like me who are still masking. There's one shopping center I go to where this hasn't happened anyplace else, where at least a couple times people have made fun of me for wearing a mask.
Right.
And once it happened in a restaurant, and I started yelling, "Fuck you," at the guy. And then my wife started yelling, "Stop, he'll break you like a stick," because the guy was bigger than me.
Uh-huh.
No. Though a guy like that, I was wearing a t-shirt that was too big, so I looked particularly small.
Uh-huh.
And a guy like that who's going to try to bully, that guy, the guy probably had me by 90 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, like, my wife was afraid that we were going to fight. We weren't going to fight because that guy's I worked in bars forever when I was a bigger guy. And that guy's a chicken shit. He just wanted to score a quick hit. He wouldn't fight when challenged. But anyway, the RFK stuff will just empower assholes like that.
And so you not only do you get scolded or put down in public, you get COVID on top of it, even though you're taking precautions, extra precautions that most
people.
Hold
on, I need to take a mute break.
Okay. Yeah, he's coughing. And that's Rick Rosner is a member of the Mega Society. He was once nominated for an Emmy writing for Jimmy Kimmel. And so, I have him on as a guest because he's one of the people that I like to talk to about a variety of subjects. And how you doing now, Rick?
I'm okay for a while. We'll see how much longer I can keep going.
Yeah. Well, we'll time the show around you. Make sure that if you can hang in there, we'll continue on with the show. The idea of us taking precautions to keep ourselves fit, that doesn't involve healthier eating. The processed foods that most of us get. There are a lot of food deserts out there where you don't have access to good, healthy food. People have to go to fast foods, and they get calories, but they get calories that aren't nutrients. They aren't taking care of themselves physically. So they get hungry again because their body needs these nutrients, so they consume more empty calories. And so we have obesity as a crisis as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I read an article that asked, how do you tell the difference between processed and unprocessed food? And it's very nebulous. And I believe you can eat crappy to a certain extent as long as you don't eat more calories than you need. But that is incredibly hard to do. It takes a ton of discipline because in the past 40 years, food has gotten delicious. In the 1940s and the 1930s, if you look back at old recipes and just pictures of food was freaking disgusting. In the 1930s, Eleanor Roosevelt, the first lady, had a recipe that was sent out to the nation from her and like the Department of Agriculture that was noodle pie. It was salt, pepper, milk, and noodles. It was like noodle loaf. And the idea was it tasted like crap. It tasted barely palatable. And the idea was it was the Depression. Nobody could afford food. But these were simple, cheap ingredients. And if you ate a slice of it, you'd get the nutrition you need, the calories you needed, but you wouldn't want a second slice. It was designed to, to not be something you wanted to eat on frickin' purpose.
And now sugarcane is in everything.
Yeah.
And so everything tastes.
Today is Chicken Wings Day, and Popeyes is running buy one box of wings, get one free. I'm going this afternoon. COVID be damned. I'm getting a ton. I love Popeyes.
Okay.
And I think Popeyes is pretty clean, as clean as you can get for fried chicken if you look at the nutrition information. And I'll pick off some of the breading, trying to be a little healthier, but anyway, food science has been totally successful to the point where 74% of Americans are overweight or obese, because you can't not be, because food tastes awesome.
Well, and eating healthy and bland is not something that you would naturally do. So can you eat healthy and spicy? Can you eat healthy and have it taste good? I would say
I think so.
I think so. And
I get pissed because everybody gives everything a little heat now. Like they throw chili and everything.
Right.
I was anemic for like 10 years without knowing it. And it turns out one of the symptoms of anemia is it kills your tongue's ability to handle spice, to handle heat. I used to be fine. I spent a lot of time in New Mexico where there's a lot of Mexican food, can be spicy. I could handle it. Not anymore because of, and I get pissed because I think that we've battered our mouths with flavor,
Interesting. I was anemic too. I used to have to administer B12 shots for myself. Did you ever have to do that?
No, they had to give me iron a couple times.
I had IV iron.
But again, it went back to my butthole that I had hemorrhoids and I was bleeding and I was losing too much blood, and that made me anemic. They fixed my butt, and that cured the anemia.
Well, that wasn't where I thought the conversation was going to
go. It always goes back to my butthole.
All right. That's interesting in the fact that the anemia was caused that way. But I also had trouble with blood clotting. I don't know. Did you ever experience that?
No, but they always showed me my numbers, and if I ever needed my blood to clot, I don't know. I don't know. I luckily, wasn't.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I actually grew a beard, a little goatee, because I could nick myself shaving, and then it would take forever to stop. And but in any case, these are the types of things. These are annoyances. They're not really crises. And what we're talking about with COVID falls under the category now of crises only because of the mismanagement. Now, you spoke a little bit about how it was managed in its introduction to society, and we spoke a little bit about how it's being mismanaged now. What do you think is the proper way to manage something like COVID? If we had our way,
I don't know if it's a rumor or an urban legend or if it's the truth, but you might remember that Trump was very reluctant to put on a mask.
Yes.
In the early, and he finally did, but it was said that he didn't want to mess up his facial bronzer by wearing a mask, because his whatever stuff he puts on, it looks like hell. Over the years he's gotten worse at putting it on, and it doesn't look like it's permanent. It looks like some kind of cream or something. And I guess if he thought if a mask got on, it would just like wear it anyway.
You
So
take off and have white mask remaining.
who frickin' knows? But the
Yeah.
deal is that he politicized masks.
Yes.
And even
And it
though
was
he,
unmanly or something, a sign of weakness to wear a mask. Yeah.
and he said that COVID would be over soon. We'd go from 15 cases to 0.
I
He
remember that.
politicized the vaccine, even though he's responsible for some of the vaccine development. He
Yeah.
then politicized it. And he got half the country acting like COVID is no freaking big deal.
Right.
And if a lot of that stuff had been done, and if he hadn't, gotten rid of the early response team, maybe we would have had lower numbers at some point that it would have allowed us to get a handle on it better.
Well, one of the things he made the excuse that Obama didn't give him any information about it. Well, it wasn't active in the Obama administration. It had happened during Trump's administration. And, the early response team did. And he did have a project that accelerated the development of vaccines. And so some of the response was adequate. But part of the messaging to the American public was inadequate. The availability of the vaccines was spotty. And the total access to health care has deteriorated and in ways where if you're wealthy and have the contacts, insurance, and that kind of stuff to take care of yourself, it's easier to do than if you're not.
Yeah. So I go to pick up the Paxlovid. I've got excellent insurance. And at CVS, they say it's $25. And I go, wow, that's pretty pricey because most of my prescriptions are like $10. And they go, yeah, you think the guy at the counter says pricey. If you didn't have insurance, this Paxlovid would be $1,700.
Right.
And, if we screw up our insurance, if we pull insurance away and Medicaid, Medicare away from people, like with AI, medicine is going to improve like super fast. Already the amount of medical data in the world doubles every month. And if you just turn on a news show on TV, you see 1 million new drugs. So many freaking drugs for not just for cancer in general, but for specific genetic strains of cancer, right. And these other diseases you've never heard of, but that hundreds of thousands of Americans probably have. And AI is going to make medicine really great, but we're limping into the future because of our bad public medical policy. So at some point, we're going to live a lot longer because medicine is going to improve wildly. At the same time, we're freaking sick.
And you think that this is COVID is one example, but you're thinking this is just a policy issue that is affecting healthcare in general.
Well, like measles, for instance, we have the most measles in the country since the 1990s.
Another thing that we thought we were done with, and it's not true. Measles outbreaks are now getting national attention.
And we've been lucky. I think only 3 people have died in this outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
But if we get hit with a new pandemic type disease, like, we've been for the past couple of years, we've been dancing with bird flu. It's a pandemic among cows in California. It killed 15% of our cows. And every infected being, especially a freaking cow, which is huge, is a lab to, because viruses reproduce sloppily. And that's how viruses move from one type of animal into another. And so what started in birds mutated and moved into cows. And it's infected some people. and it's pretty deadly, like 20% fatality rate. I don't know, that might be too high. If you get it, only a few people have gotten it. But if it becomes more transmissible to people, then we've got another dangerous freaking potential epidemic, pandemic.
Yeah.
And the CDC is not up to it right now.
And the CDC is not up to it right now because of the policy decisions that from people above them. Yeah.
And also the CDC had problems even before RFK Jr.,
Okay.
where they were skittish based on what happened 50 years ago with swine flu.
Right. I remember swine flu.
Where they thought swine flu was going to be a pandemic. And then they brought out a vax, and the vax made like one person in 1,000 sick. Gave them, I think, Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is paralysis.
Not good, right?
No, and ever since, the CDC has been skittish about, aggressively going after stuff. Michael Lewis has a book about it called The Premonition, and it tells you the whole history of the CDC.
Right. So, taking COVID as an example, vaccine seems to me to be the obvious solution. We have an administration right now anti-vaccine. The anti-vaccine is incredibly popular in the current mindset of throughout the country, which to me translates into it's going to remain. We're not going to get rid of it as long as people are not getting vaccinated against it. And even
those valleys, the reservoir that never freaking all the way empties, those valleys will never get any deeper.
Well, now we had smallpox, we had polio, and these may come back, who knows? But those valleys got so low that they were essentially.
So the COVID is a form of SARS, and I don't know exactly what that is, but
yeah, respiratory.
I would guess that polio maybe mutates less than SARS, and maybe it's more of a fixed target, and you can vaccinate against it more effectively, because COVID is blurry. It's always changing.
That's a very good point. It's very not only is it transmutable, but the variants continue to evolve. Yeah. And so this is one way viruses survive, is by rapid evolution. And so you're trailing behind, you're vaccinating against a strain that's while it's mutating into another.
Yeah, and that feeds into bullshit from the anti-vax people. If the vax worked, how come people still get COVID?
Right.
Because COVID's a different disease from measles, where I think measles you can vaccinate, effectively against, you can give somebody a 90, I don't know, 8%, 99% chance of, if you get vaccinated, of just not getting it. Because measles, you can target it precisely. With COVID, you vaccinate and you protect people against getting super sick with it, getting hospitalized, but you can't freaking target it so precisely that you've given your body a head start with some antibodies that are pretty good at catching it.
Exactly.
But it's still gonna proliferate in your body to some extent, while your body makes its own new antibodies that are specifically targeted against the strain that's in your body.
Right. But the medical advances, for example, AI, as you mentioned earlier, it seems to me that their awareness of these new strains can accelerate with time as well. And so the turnaround time between a mutated variant appearing, being discovered and being targeted successfully should also accelerate.
Well, there's a pretty good system which relies on poo water. They take sewage and they
Yes,
dip into it, and then they see what kind of COVID people are peeing and pooping out.
right.
And even that gets, affected by politics, where some states just shut it down because they've got a Republican governor and they just don't report.
Yeah, and you're going to find it more difficult to track how prevalent these diseases are. So if a talking head comes on the TV and says it's gone, you might believe it.
Well, I mean, people think it's gone because, you and I kind of know better because right now there's only one person in my house who doesn't have it. In your house, you've got a couple people with it. But if you don't have it, you don't hear about it.
Right. And that's exactly right. If it's not in your sphere of influence and the people around you don't have it, then you think, we're doing something better than other people. Obviously, we don't have it. And that's just not the case. Circumstances vary from case to case. And how you get exposed is a variable that you can't really control either. What you can do, though, is vote. And you can vote for somebody who's going to be aware that we need vaccinations. We need medical development. We need medical research. We need medical supplies. We need all of these things, and it's a priority in our lives because we don't want people sick, even if they're functioning. Because if you're sick and you need your paycheck, you're going to drag yourself to work and get other people sick. So this is one of the things that we want to raise the awareness of people in general, that your vote matters. It's not something you can just forget about. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. No, there are people that are doing right now. The policy that's in place right now is harmful. So the only way you can get rid of this policy is by throwing the bums out.
But
and you have to do it again and again and again, do it again and again.
We're lucky that COVID doesn't punish its victims enough to change people's minds.
Now, that's also the virus. As long as its ability to mutate and adapt, it's also, if you kill your host, you're not going to be able to transmit.
But the deal is, so the Civil War killed about 700,000 Americans, about 3% of the population. It was horrible. And the horror of the civil and young Americans,
right?
People who die in battle are in their late teens or in their 20s.
The red badge of courage,
right? So the horror of that effectively vaccinated the U.S. against some kinds of bullshit for a few generations. But COVID, 80% of the people it kills are over 65. It kills grandmas and grandpas, and people who are in denial can say, well, they were on their way out anyway. What's the big deal? And actually, some families were probably happy because then they got grandma's money.
Ouch.
And COVID, for a while, it was killing about one person in 400 who gets it. Now, I think with, improved treatment, we know what to do, and enough people have had it or have been vaxxed that I think it's about one person in 1,000, because COVID itself isn't milder, but if you've been vaxxed or you've had it before, it is milder because you've got some defenses against it.
Right.
So people think it's no big deal because it's only killing one person in 1,000 now. And
Getcha.
That lets the people who are in denial say, yeah, it's nothing. It's a cold. It's no big deal. It's the deadliest event in U.S. history. It killed more Americans and continues to than the people who died in battle in all of our wars combined. But the denial people, they have a million dumbass arguments about why it's no
Well,
big deal, or it's not true.
people are going to say it's not true. So tell us, how do you know that? How do you know that COVID has killed more people than the people that died in battle?
Because I tracked the statistics for the whole time, because I've got a background in math and statistics, and I know how to read a paper, a scientific paper. I can tell if it's bullshit or not. Um, I've seen death certificates, and so the argument, like, deniers like to say, did they die of COVID or did they die with COVID?
Right.
And it's like, I mean, you got to just say fuck you to those people. The deal is, I saw my brother-in-law's death certificate. He had 6 causes of death. He was homeless, and he had a number of horrible things going on that all contributed to his death. And, somebody who's like 81 years old gets COVID, dead in 2 weeks. But they also had, COPD, they had diabetes, they were obese. And it's like, well, did they die of COVID? They die with COVID. Well, no, COVID killed them. If they hadn't gotten COVID, they could have kept going for a while. So your argument is horse shit. Just because they had other things going on, that doesn't mean they deserve to die from getting this
Preventable disease, right?
Yeah, and so,
and the I guess the gist of the question comes down to: is COVID preventable?
So I've worked as hard as anybody to avoid getting COVID. I didn't want it. I masked even in places where people would occasionally make fun of me. Every time I go to the gym, I mask, because there's a lot of, people are breathing hard. There's a lot of stuff flying around. I stay boosted, and I'll continue to do that. I guess I don't have to get boosted for like the next 3 months, because I've gotten, naturally. But in the fall, I guess Thanksgiving, I'll start looking for a vax again to see if they've got, even though RFK's Department of Health will make it harder to get vaxxed.
Right.
So, and I got away with it for 5.5 years, and I feel like the case I have hasn't permanently. We'll find out. But I'm hoping I'm not a candidate for long COVID. I didn't lose my sense of smell or taste, which were kind of the old school symptoms.
Right.
But I'm hoping not to have, any permanent disability. And I'll continue to work hard to not get it again, because the damage is cumulative. The tearing up of your body that the spike protein does, it adds up every time you get it again. Also, like idiots like my friend Lance say, well, what about the spike protein when you get a vaccination? And according to the best numbers I've seen, the amount of spike protein you get from actually getting COVID is between 80 and 8,000 times the amount you get from the vaccination. So I'd rather have 1/80th or 1/8,000th by getting vaccinated.
Right. And the vaccine, basically the idea is that you introduce enough to trigger your natural immune system to create the antibodies that are needed.
Well, your immune system learns by feeling the shapes of things. You got these amoeba-looking grabber cells, and something weird gets in your body, and they float over to it and they grab it, and they're like, okay, this is weird. It shouldn't be here. And it's got things on it that are shaped like this, like doorknobs in the case of COVID. And it learns that shape, and it communicates. I don't know how it works exactly, but your body starts making, grabber cells that specifically grab onto the doorknob shape. Um, and so, yeah, so a vaccine injects you with the shapes. They can't infect you, but they can float around and be detected by the grabber cells and teach your body what to grab.
Right. So, and if you're against that, you really have to make your argument.
Well, there's one more thing. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
So the idiots like are against mRNA vaccines because genetics or some bullshit. There's another vax out there. It's taken a few years to develop. Doesn't use mRNA. It uses old school technology called Novavax. And so if you're scared of mRNA vaccines because you've listened to idiots, you can get a vaccine that's even more effective now that doesn't use that technology you've been taught to be afraid of.
Yeah, I've been afraid of that technology. I think it's the answer, but I didn't know about Novavax. So.
But also RFK has made it hard to get that stuff. I don't think it was supposed to come out this fall, and I don't even know if it's gonna. I've asked about it every time I go to get vaxxed, and they're like, no, we don't have it yet.
Right.
But eventually, maybe.
Yes.
Or if you've got connections like Trump, when he got COVID, he had all the pull in the world, and he got, super expensive and a super wide variety of treatments that saved his life.
Yeah. That he turned around and thought it was all about him being Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to talk about the vaccines and how your immune system works and all of these things. And the idea is the disease preventable? And we have, as Rick pointed out, examples of diseases that we have virtually eliminated, although some seem to be popping up again. And the problem is when they know how to mutate and change enough so that the vaccines that you develop are no longer effective against them. And my feeling is that because we have more sophisticated diagnostics now, that with the aid of artificial intelligence, we can do diagnostics more effectively, more efficiently, and much, much faster than we ever were able to do. That if our policy was in favor of keeping people healthy rather than letting them get sick, because our healthcare has really been sick care. And what we really need to do is talk in terms of prevention.
Well, amazing stuff has happened. Nixon started the war on cancer more than 50 years ago. And in the past 50 years, the percent of people who have a recurrence of cancer within 5 years of the date of treatment has been cut in half. It used to be half of people with cancer didn't make it to 5 years before a recurrence. Now 75%, only 25% of people have a recurrence within 5 years, down from 50%. And that rate is still dropping 25 to 24 to 23%, like 1% a year, which is awesome.
Right.
But the government has to help and has to let universities and other research institutions, including the government itself, do the research to keep going. And right now, that whole structure is
being undermined,
siege by idiots.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's okay. We put those idiots in power so we can take that power away from them. But we're going to have to do something, and the midterms are going to be the first time that we'll test the American public's will to make change. And if we get more of the same, then we get the government we deserve.
Yeah, so statistically, if you look at the history of midterms, the House usually flips, particularly when there's an unpopular president, and no president has been more unpopular than Trump, but he has very durable support
Yes.
among the people who like him, like 44, 45% of the people surveyed. Um, and so there's no guarantee that the House flips. And
Right.
we have to work
If
our
they're
ass.
motivated, they will go out and vote. And there's too many people that are unmotivated and think their vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of the democracy, is to give everyone a voice. And if you don't use your voice, then you get what you paid for. And people will continue to get sick. And our medical research and medical advances will not keep pace with the mutability of the future.
I'm
So
writing a novel set in the 2030s. And we've seen in advertising over the past 10 years, they've started to include overweight people because they're a huge part of our demographic. And they've started to include biracial couples, A, because they're part of our demographic, but B, because it lets you hit two different demographics at once. You put, a Latino guy with a black woman, and then you get two for the price of one. In the future, the 2030s that I'm writing about, commercials start if they've got a group of people having fun, on the beach or something. It includes a gooper. And what I call a gooper. A gooper is somebody with like an oozy face because they've got some kind of like permanent crud. Because in the future, we're going to have a ton of people just walking around with crud, just semi debilitated, but still enjoying life, even though, they've got some disgusting freaking thing that is trickling through the population.
ugh.
It's like in a beer commercial, you got the hot blonde lady, you got the Latina lady, you got the black lady, and then you got the hot gooper lady. Yeah. And
Okay, so
she's in a bikini or whatever they wear in the future. Maybe they don't wear bottoms in the future. I don't know.
okay.
But like she's got like this drippy ass face, but you'd still make out with her. You'd risk getting her crud because it's a beer commercial.
Okay. So that image is going to stick with me longer than I want it to. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for joining us, especially when you're not 100% well. I really appreciate it, Rick.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to take you offline now, and I'll just close the episode, and we'll see you next week, I hope.
All right. See you then.
Okay. Bye. All right. Rick Rosner. He's my eye candy. I want you to know that there's a couple of reasons that I do the show. One is because it's a public service, of course, because I'm altruistic in that way. But it's also because, hey, I wanted to let you know that I've been writing books. And a couple of the books that I've written are No Blame, No Shame. And it's also written Freedom, Your Path to Recovery. Of course, I'm best known for writing Chess for Dummies because I am a chess master as well as a recovering addict. So I want the message that I say to encourage people. I want to share my strength, my experience, and my hope with you that everyone has power and ability to recover. Everyone is a potential person in recovery, no matter how far down you've gone, because I was pretty far down. And now I'm back up and I'm hosting a show and I'm having amazing guests like Rick Rosner on. So thank you for joining us. And please keep viewing Air